So when we planned, we started by brainstorming what they really needed and talking about, well, first of all, we had our expectations. Like, we've got to talk about Common Core, we've got to talk about Teacher Leader Core.
And we also talked about how we had just done all that work with our mission statement and our values as a school, and how could we better support them in figuring out what that looked like in their classroom.
And then we started finding resources to help integrate all that, right?
And we knew that we wanted them to have some sort of shared experience. We found like an article, an excerpt to read that would work well with the Learning Lab.
That was my favorite part.
Yeah. That was a good part.
Because I don't like talking about it. Okay.
We also knew that even though they've had a year with Common Core and Essential Standards, we needed to continue to talk about it. So we revisited what worked last year and talked a little bit about what their needs were.
And what was most important.
And we realized even more that they needed that because of Gradebook. Like they had questions about how it worked with Gradebook. So we had that conversation as well.
And then looking at the tools, because the article talked about how we can match what we're teaching to a tool and not just choosing a tool, but, kind of working backwards that way. And that tied in perfectly what Teacher Leader Core was doing.
And we've had conversations with teachers about, we're teaching the whole child all day, and we want their experience to be smooth throughout the day, and we want it to be connected. So we felt like we needed to really connect that. So, the article was something they read and talked about, and then they went and watched teachers who are thinking really purposefully about things like that in the Learning Lab, looked at curriculum, looked at tools, and then used all of that to write a better unit, or maybe not write a better unit, add to their unit,
either improve
or create a new one that would help them, help their students. What went well?
Differentiating
I was
made
just
it go really well. It did, because we could, and being able to stop and pause and spend more time on things that needed more time, and then another group came in and they may not have needed as much time, so then we could move on to what they really needed to talk about.
And I think that really honored them as learners, like adult learners. They had more buy-in because we were here to really get at things that they needed, and they never have enough time to have that conversation, so that was good for them. I think the Learning Labs went really well too. I think teachers were really excited to go see other teachers and debrief that and think about next steps for their own classrooms.
Yeah, and they did, and they reflected when they were writing their units. They talked about how the things I saw in there I want to incorporate into this unit. I want to be planning like this.
Yeah.
So we talked about how the planning is really overwhelming, and it's a lot, but then as a team you can work together and make it more manageable. Because we talked about how the Teacher Leader Core members, they talked to each other about what they were planning, which was kind of interesting. Even though they're not even all on the same team, they still talk to each other and planned together. So
I think one of the other pieces of that was nice too was like a 5th grade teacher was watching a 3rd grade classroom or 1st grade classroom, and kind of just naturally seeing vertical alignment of curriculum, but also kind of thinking about some of the students in their room that need different types of differentiated instruction, and kind of recognizing like, oh, I've got kids in my room that are at this level, and oh, look at the strategies she's using for that child. It was just a nice opportunity for them to see that and also think about it. And everybody had different goals when they came back. Like some people were thinking about management of a classroom and how am I going to manage all these different things going on. And others, I think, were further along with that, so they were thinking more about the planning part. But everybody got their own takeaway from it, which was nice.
Yeah, and even the Teacher Leader Core members, I remember them reflecting on it, and they talked about how helpful it was to have someone else come and watch them. And they said, it made me really be even more reflective about what I'm teaching and how I'm planning and how they're going to perceive this. And then getting feedback from them, because they came in and talked to the teachers and said, hey, what did you think of my lesson? What do you have any questions? And them having that conversation made it more meaningful for even the Teacher Leader Core members. I
think they were surprised. I may have already said this, class. But I think they were really surprised at how much they liked going into other classrooms, and those that had teachers in there, how much they liked that, and they want to continue to do that and think about that more during the day.
So for things that we could have done better, I wish we talked afterwards. We wish we would have had some kind of a form or a sheet where we kind of ended things with each group and said, okay, this is everything we talked about, almost like a reflection sheet, and then like what are our next steps, where do we go from here, because we kind of talked about it as a group, but we didn't have anything formal that they can go back and look at later and remember what they did.
And I think it would help us better support them, because even though we had that summary conversation at the end of the day of like, okay, where are we and what are we doing tomorrow, you and I a week later were going, wait a minute, what did that grade say and what do they need? And because we have things we need to help them with too, so there was that piece. And I also think like after they watched in the learning lab, if we were to do this again, I would want to work like even 10 minutes, some coverage for that classroom teacher that was observed to come sit in on the debrief, where she could kind of say, well, here's what was going on in my head. I just want to tell you that, and do you have any questions for me? Because they did have questions, and not only that, but those teachers generally stopped by during lunch or during their own planning and said, oh, this is the part that went great, and this is the part that went horrible, and I need to tell you that, and I want to make sure you understand that. And they wanted the opportunity to talk with the group and observe them too. So I think next time if we built that in, that could make that observation even more powerful for everyone.
With even guided questions, probably. To go with it.
Definitely.
I think what I really enjoyed about the day was having the time to spend together to talk about our units that we've used so far and talk about how we can improve upon them. And I also liked going to different rooms to see Ryan and Amanda teaching and the different techniques that they were bringing into the classroom to make their to teach the content.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Ryan's web quest that he did, and having that time to actually go back and search for web quests that we could possibly use for our units, I thought was really helpful, because there were 2 units that we could definitely use them for.
And I liked seeing the 2 different activities that would meet different learning styles and teaching styles. So it helps us to see how the students we had last year were performing, and it also is a good way to see which one might work in the classes we have this year to meet the students' needs.
Right. And not only like their learning styles, but what goes better with the content. So maybe like the song that Amanda used would have been really good to go with our like government unit, since they were also doing government, a different part of it. So I like that part.
So maybe we could even investigate a little bit more, something like that, to add to our unit.
Right. Well, I think the time was incredibly beneficial just to build up our team and build up what we're already doing and confirming the good things that we had and what could be changed.
And adding to it.
So, I think at first when we had talked about the idea of learning labs, I wasn't nervous about people coming into my classroom. I was a little bit more nervous about maybe videotaping. And once I was able to sort of get past that and realize that this was a chance for me to show what my students were doing, to show some of my best practices, and all the things that we're learning through Teacher Leader Corps, I felt more relaxed about it. I also really liked that we had 3 learning labs, so each time I did it, I was able to build on those experiences and check in with you guys and the people that observed me to get that feedback. So it was really probably some of my best lessons, because I got to be reflective, and then I also got to hear what you had to say about it.
I think it also helped me to be reflective too. Have other people coming in to think about how different grade levels could apply what they were seeing in my class. So it really helped me to think about what strategies I was using. And then I tried to keep it pretty simple. So even though there were some simple takeaways, the lessons were really well thought through. So I just tried to make sure they flowed really well and other people could have something that wasn't too overwhelming that they could take away.
I think I liked that the best, that, when people came in, they were, oh, I could use this with my kindergartners or my first graders, even though it was a 3rd grade lesson. And I think that a lot of the teachers saw that it wasn't technology that couldn't immediately be used. I think that's helpful.
Well, it's been wonderful being a second-year teacher. You're excellent models for me and what you're doing in the learning labs, because I get to see how well these classes are working for you, and everybody's getting to view what you're doing in your classrooms as well. I might not be able to go in every time, but I get a piece of it in our planning time, and you guys share your lessons with me so I can actually use them as well. And I like the reflective nature of you two saying what went well with your techniques and what went well with yours, and then kind of coming together and saying what we could change in the next class we do.
I think overall, just the learning for the kids has been awesome.
Yeah.
Just because we get to just keep building on it, we just keep making it better every time, and they're excited, about what we're doing.
Yeah, and I was nervous about it at first, but it was nice because I don't have other people observe me too often, but get a lot of positive feedback, so that was nice to see that what we were doing is effective.
And I think, just even in the hallway, some people have been like, oh, when are you guys doing that again? They've asked about it. So it kind of motivates me to think, okay, well, the language teachers are coming this time, or, it's going to be 5th grade. It helps me to be more purposeful, I think, in what I'm doing.
And for each of the learning labs, I did a different subject for each one, so that was definitely stepping outside of my comfort zone for me to try to incorporate technology in every subject.
And we love technology. Go team!